Crooked River, Chapter 35. When Peter Kelly said goodbye to us that day, I knew we would never see the likes of him again. As Ricebird waited at the edge of the woods with her back turned towards us, he made his way to where we stood by the spring house. Even little Mercy was still and silent, watching him. "I wanted to tell you before I left that I was grateful," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, "for what you did. Even in spite of your own pa, even in spite of all the others, for showing some human decency and kindness." He waved his arm in the direction of the house and his voice broke. To him. Seemed like none of us knew what to answer. We looked away as Peter Kelly wiped his arm across his eyes. Finally, Laura spoke. "Rebecca took him all the food and such. She's the most soft-hearted one." "Bird eyes," Peter Kelly said, looking up and smiling in the smallest way. "What?" I replied. Peter Kelly pointed at me. "Bird eyes for you." Quick, darting eyes. Then he turned to Laura. "Tall girl who follows," he said. "That's what Ahmik calls each of you." I had never thought of myself as being anything but plain and ordinary Rebecca Carver. Nothing worth noticing. To think that Indian John had given me a name when no one else called me anything much more than full-headed and addle-brained made my insides ache. And how did he know that Laura was tall girl who follows? That she had been that way ever since Ma died? That she had stepped right into Ma's own footprints and left her own? What had we given to Indian John? That's what my mind asked. I had left him foolish acorns and ribbons and paltry small things. When Pa wasn't watching, Laura had tried to give him extra helpings of our food. None of it amounted to very much. "Isn't there something more that can be done?" Laura's voice rose. "With the judge or the laws, perhaps?" Peter Kelly rubbed his eyes. "I would give away everything I have if I could save Ahmik. Everything I have," he said in a voice choked with tears. "Ahmik believes the thunder will save him on the day of the hanging. The thunder," he cried, sweeping his arm toward the sky. What could I tell him? I couldn't say that it wouldn't. I couldn't tell him that there isn't a thing that can be done for him. Not one thing to save him. Peter Kelly put on his hat and turned away. "Thank you again," he whispered over his shoulder, and was gone. If I was hoping that Peter Kelly would find a way to save Indian John, my hope was lost with him. As I watched his narrow shoulders and ill-fitting coat disappear into the woods, I had to brush the stinging tears out of my own eyes. I didn't dare to look over at Laura. She ran toward the cabin without a word, leaving Mercy and me behind. Fine. That's what I thought as I stood in the silence. A 13-year-old without much courage or brains would go ahead by herself and find a way to free Indian John. Maybe the thunder couldn't save him, but I could. I would save the life of Ahmik no matter what harm came to me. That's what I decided.